Welcome back to the Fox Local Book Club, and today we're taking a deep dive into an eerie and ethereal debut novel that is already generating some buzz. Underlake by Erin L. McCoy is being called a genre-bending story about a flooded town and a hidden society that reads like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea meets Station 11. And joining us now via Zoom to take us beneath the surface of this world is the author herself. Erin, thanks so much for being with us on the Fox Local Book Club.
Thank you, Linda. I'm excited to be here.
So Underlake has such a haunting and really unique premise about a town submerged under a lake where a former diver uncovers an isolated society. Tell us more.
Yeah, so it's really the story of two women. One, whose name is May, is a mother whose daughter has gone missing, and May believes that she is under a lake alive. Ada is a marine biologist who's afraid to dive again. They pair up and they go searching for that daughter and discover a community of people living under the lake that have been isolated there for decades.
So a real-life childhood memory inspired the book?
Yeah, to some degree. So I grew up in Kentucky. I actually live in St. Pete now, but grew up near a man-made lake in Kentucky that did have a town underneath it. And so when I came up with this image that started the book, it was an image of a submerged house kind of glowing underwater. I don't know that I was consciously connecting it to that lake, but I made the connection quickly and started to do research about that town near where I grew up, and it really helped to inform the plot of the book. But what was really interesting actually is when I started to share the plot with people, they started to say, oh, well, I grew up near a lake like that with a town underneath. And I learned that there are actually hundreds of towns like this around the US and thousands around the world. And so that's just been a very fascinating thing to learn about why these lakes were created, sometimes for irrigation, sometimes for flood control. But seeing a lot of people really connect with the plot in that way and connected to their personal experience has been a nice surprise for me.
I didn't realize there were that many. Very interesting. So the novel weaves together like elements of literary fiction, some sci-fi, dystopia, and adventure. What was it like building a world that kind of lives in so many different genres?
Yeah, you know, I tried not to overthink it. So I always knew I wanted it to be literary fiction, and that just means that the quality of the language was important to me, and I wanted a really propulsive plot that anyone could enjoy, but I also wanted to explore deeper themes around grief, nostalgia, environmental destruction. But yeah, I studied Latin American literature. I have this love for magical realism, so it didn't entirely surprise me when other genres started to creep in. And as I was writing, I just tried not to be too concerned about putting the novel in a box. I wanted the whole novel to, all the plot points to be technically possible, so I did a lot of research to make that happen, but in the end I just had to let the story be what it had to be.
So your protagonist that you mentioned is a former diver who makes the shocking underwater discovery. What drives her and what makes her the perfect guide for the reader?
Yeah, so her name is Ada, and I think she's relatable on a number of fronts. So she has sort of failed to achieve her dream of becoming a marine biologist, and in some ways has betrayed that dream by working on an oil rig in the Gulf, working for an oil company rather than, supporting ecological education. And she's also lost a friend in a diving accident. And I think we all have childhood dreams or images of who we want to be, and at some point look at ourselves and say, how am I going to get there, or have I failed to get there, and what do I do next? And I think Ada's story is about what happens next. It's in some ways almost universal. When we failed at a goal, how do we still find meaning and purpose in our lives and move on to something next? Ada finds purpose using her diving skills to help a stranger search for her missing daughter under a lake. And along the way, Ada starts to face that grief head on and to discover what she wants the next phase of her life to be.
Erin, so many more questions, but we got to run, so I'm going to tell everybody how they can ask you these questions in person if they'd like. You can meet the author in person. She will be in the Tampa Bay area for a special event at the Gilded Page in Tarpon Springs tomorrow at 6:30. I'll post more details on my social media pages. Look for Fox 13's Linda Hurtado and like the page. Thanks for joining us.